You're watching a message from Connect Church of Jacksonville. Find us online at connectchurchjax.org.
All right, all in. We're talking about all in. Let's look at Matthew chapter 6. Lord Jesus, I just pray that during this series you would help us to see some areas, help us to define some areas, Lord, that maybe we need to get all in. Maybe our family needs to get all in. Maybe we need to prioritize some things. And Lord, help us to see some areas that may be good stuff, but not necessarily your plan for us, that we can decide that, Lord, we don't need to be all in with anymore. Lord, I've definitely been in that situation in my life. And Lord, I know that you can be pretty thorough when you get ready to get rid of it too. So Father, I just pray that you give us the grace, Lord, to see your plan for our life and to be people who are without fear to pursue it. We love you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Matthew chapter 6, verse 19, it says this. It says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. It's funny how, what we invest our lives in, what we choose to be all in with, is where our hearts follow. We can make decisions. A lot of people would say, hey, I got to follow my heart. But the truth of the matter is your heart follows your decisions. Your heart follows your decisions. We can be pulled in a certain way, but when we make a decision and stick with it, our hearts will learn to follow that decision. And so, we live in an extremely busy society. We make decisions about time management and about priorities all the time. There's unlimited opportunity for us to be involved in all kind of things, for have our families involved in things. There's a lot of good things, whether we're talking about athletics or different clubs or this or that or concerts or, as far as people that, parents go to work, we can choose to be all in with our work, and sometimes at the expense of our families. Sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we don't have any choice because they don't give us any choice. But sometimes we can make decisions. Sometimes we can choose to be all in with leisure stuff. I know, just left to my own devices without Jesus given an opportunity, I'd spend every day at a theme park on a roller coaster. I like roller coasters. So, we have the opportunity in our society to be all in with unlimited different things. We just really do. And most of us, if truth be told, are constantly plugged in to something or distracted by something all the time. We're a plugged-in society. There's this thing where people have panic attacks when you take away their cell phones. There really is something like that. And it's the fear of being disconnected or fear of not being able to chase Pokemon. I don't know what it is, but I ain't even going to go. Really? I'm not. Anyway. We're constantly plugged into stuff and distracted by stuff. See people riding down the road. Yeah, he's right here. Hold on. I think I can catch him. Hold up. I missed him. Pikachu. Anyway. Yeah, it's probably, Pastor Phil almost got killed Friday night by somebody doing that. So anyway, we're constantly plugged into and distracted by all of these different things. We just are. And most of the things, to be truthful, are good things, but they're probably not God things. There's a lot of good things out there to be involved with. There's a ton of good things that we can be involved in, but is it really a God thing? Does it have an eternal perspective, or is it a temporary thing? There's a lot of, we find this with church when we organize and start looking at pursuing things or supporting things. There's a ton of things out there I would love to be involved in, but the truth of the matter is there are a lot of good things, but is it a God thing for us right now in this season? We have to make decisions. We have to prioritize. And so what is the God stuff and what is the good stuff? Most of this stuff has some level, the good things have some level of importance as we go through life. You know, roller coasters for me have some level of importance. It's a small level. It helps me blow off steam. Small level of importance, but compared to pushing the gospel forward, that importance pales by comparison. You know what I mean? It's what's eternal and what's temporal. Do y'all see a theme over the last few weeks the Lord's been tying together, us prioritizing and making decisions and going down? I mean, it's just amazing how he's done that, and it really wasn't intentional. It's just what he's been saying. Y'all know I don't get this stuff out of a book. I don't have this year I'm going to preach this week. I go and say, okay, Jesus, what do you want to say to your people? That's how we do things. And it's just been kind of a theme the last few weeks of us investing our lives in something that's going to have an eternal reward, that's going to have an eternal significance. It's just a theme of that. And so all of this stuff has some level of importance, but the question is for us and for you and for your family and for your purpose in this season, what is the God thing? What is the God thing? And we all have to answer that question individually. I cannot answer that for you. I can't. I can help you find some stuff that may not be. That's what we call counseling. Anyway, but I can't pick for you what is the God thing in this season. You have to go before the Lord and do that. But your life will have much more eternal impact if you will do that, if I will do that. Most of the things we've invested in have our heart, don't have a huge eternal value. And to me, that's a shame. Because we only have a limited amount of time. We only have a limited amount of energy. We only have a limited amount of resources to invest our life in. We only have a finite amount of that. And once it's gone, it's gone. You know, I can't get back tomorrow. And I can't get back yesterday. I can't get back tomorrow. That's like Back to the Future stuff. I can't get back yesterday. And I may not make tomorrow. You know, we don't know. We don't know. So what we have is right now. That's what we have is right now. So we need to make sure that we invest our hearts correctly. Make sure we invest our lives correctly. So the question comes up then. Why is it that I'm willing to spend, that I'm see how I'm putting us in here and I'm asking a question of myself. Why is it that we're willing to spend so much of our time, so much of our energy on temporal things, on insignificant things? Why is it that I'm willing to burn up so much of that? I think that we just get distracted. For me, it's probably because I'm a little bit ADD. If truth be known, you know, I'm that squirrel. It's hard for me to focus. I get distracted easy. But I think that we get distracted easy. I think that we lose sight of the importance and the value of the things that are eternal. It's almost like it's really easy to forget that there really is a life after this, that there really is something after this, that we really are working towards, we're in eternity now. Eternity for you started when Jesus came into your heart. Your eternity started. But there really is something after this that we're working towards. It really is important who we talk to, who we touch, who we reach. It really is important what we teach our kids to value because there's eternity at stake. But it is so easy, especially in this society, to lose track of that, to lose sight of that. You know, I've been other places to where it's a lot easier for them to keep that in sight, to keep that in perspective because, to be truthful, they don't have anything else. They don't. But in a society that we live in where everything is at our very fingertips, where, if we want to eat, we can get in our Range Rover or whatever it is that you drive. I drive a Kia. I could get in my vehicle, go outside, crank it up, drive 5 miles down the road and go through a drive-thru and complain about how long it takes in the drive-thru for me to get my cheeseburger. In other societies, it doesn't work that way. But we get so short-sighted because everything is so convenient for us. Everything is so easy for us. And it's easy to get distracted when you live in a place like that. So here's the deal. Sometimes I find myself just realizing I'm all in. I'm just all in with the wrong things. And that is where we have to change priorities. That is where we have to change things a little bit and put things in a right perspective. There's things sometimes that we have to delete out of our lives. Many of you know I was I was a street racer. I was a hot rodder. That was my thing, man. I mean, that was it. I was going to be a professional race car driver. That was it for me. But that wasn't what God had in mind. But that was where my heart was, because that was where my treasure was. And anyway, that's where everything was. But God said, listen, that's not it for you. He really, really brought that to me. And when I came to Jesus and said, okay, Lord, I want your plan for my life. I'll go anywhere. I'll do anything. I want your plan for my life. You can have my whole life. He said, okay, I want the race car. Lord, maybe we can negotiate a little bit here. Maybe we can, ease into that. But he was very thorough. Why? Because my life was so much invested in that, I couldn't really invest my life in what he wanted to give me. And I promise you, what he's given me is so much greater than that. And that stuff just kind of falls by the wayside. It pales with comparison. It just doesn't. It just really is not. We need to sometimes make some adjustments in our time, adjustments where we invest ourselves. Let's look at Luke chapter 10, verse 38. I want to read you a story here. Luke 10:38 says this: as Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed them into her home. And her sister Mary sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he taught. But Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. She came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister just sits there while I do all the work? Jesus, don't you think it's... Lord, why are you letting my sister just sit there while I carry all the burden? Jesus. Okay. Tell her to come and help me. But the Lord said to her, my dear Martha, you're worried and upset over all these details. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken away from her. That's just, okay, so let me get this straight. Let me try to put myself in this position. So Jesus shows up at my house, his disciples. Jesus, like King of the universe, that Jesus. He shows up at my house and brings his disciples, and I know they got to be fed. I know that. And here is my opportunity to shine. Here's my opportunity to shine. So he shows up, and I got a sister. I don't know, some of y'all do. I can just think, I've got a sister. My sister wouldn't do this. But I got a sister. My sister watches these videos. Anyway, just say my sister goes in and she's hanging out with Jesus. She's just in there hanging out with Jesus, but it's my turn to entertain people. That's one of the things I can kind of relate to this story, because that's one of the things that my family does. My family's very hospitality oriented. It's just the way I grew up. My mom's house is designed for that. It's just we're real hospitality oriented. But I can just see Jesus showing up, and so this is my time to shine. I'm going to make this big dinner, show off my culinary skills. And my sister's in there hanging out with Jesus. And I'm like, don't you see me in here killing myself in this kitchen? Kind of get mad, get a little frustrated. And so it's all I can take. And I finally just go to Jesus. And because it's all I can take, because I am so invested in showing our culinary skills and making a good representation, I just go to Jesus and say, hey, Jesus, how come you're going to let my sister just sit there, see me kill myself over here, and not even say anything to her? She goes and chastises Jesus. She doesn't even go to her sister. Not that we know of. She went straight to Jesus and starts chastising Jesus. That's just, think about that. That's a little crazy. And Jesus is very gracious about the thing, but he does correct her. So anyhow, he just tells her, what he basically tells her is, listen, your sister has found a good part. Your sister has found that has some eternal value. Listen, I can break some bread and multiply some fish, whatever we need to do. We could call out for takeout pizza, whatever we need to do. But there's an eternal opportunity here, eternally significant opportunity for you to come and hang out just like your sister is. And because she's choosing the best part, I'm not taking it from her. You should learn from what she's doing. And I got to be honest, there's times in life where I have felt that way. I know there's times in life when many of you have probably felt that way. You felt like, hey, man, I'm carrying this huge burden. Doesn't my sister, doesn't my brother see that I'm carrying this burden? How come, and you can get a little a little aggravated when you realize sometimes people choose a better part and you weren't supposed to be carrying the burden you were carrying to start with. It's about having an eternal perspective. Why do I put so much effort into stuff that's not eternally significant? I have a tendency to do that. We all have a tendency to do that. Listen, I need to look at my life. I need to look at my family's life. You need to look at your life, your family's life, and figure out what is primary and what is secondary. See, I can't be all in with the primary stuff if I'm already all in and invested in the secondary stuff. If all of my effort is poured into what's secondary and not primary, when the primary comes up, I'm spent. I got nothing. When the stuff that's really important comes up and I've spent all of my energy, my time, my resources on the stuff that's secondary, and I didn't save anything for the really important stuff, then I lose the opportunity of the important stuff at the expense of something that doesn't even really matter. Now, this message can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people, but we all, in one way, one form, one fashion, every one of us do this. All of us do this. All of us have at least done this. So we need to look at our own life. What's the deal? Keep the main thing the main thing. Did I say that last week? I think I even said that last week. Keep the main thing the main thing. Well, in order to keep the main thing the main thing, you got to figure out what the main thing is and not the secondary thing. Because if you don't know what the main thing is and you think the secondary thing is the main thing, then you can't keep the main. Y'all didn't even follow me, did you? You got to figure out what the main thing is and keep the main thing the main thing. How do I do that? You have to sit down and you have to ask yourself, I have to ask myself, what do I really value most? What do I really value most? What has eternal significance for me in my life? Let's turn to Matthew chapter 13. Let's look at that. Matthew chapter 13. We'll look at this from another perspective. It says this, Matthew 13:24. He put another parable before them, saying, the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also, and the servants of the master of the house came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed into your fields? Did you not sow good seed here? Master, what kind of seed did you buy? Were you cheap on your seed, Master? Did you get Monsanto, or what did you get? Some of y'all who know anything about farming, or anyway. Master, what kind of seed? Did you get the cut rate seed? Because this seed is, Lord, it's messed up. There's weeds all in here. What kind of seeds did you sow? How then does it have weeds? He said to them, an enemy has done this. So the servant said to him, then do you want us to go and gather them? But he said, no, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time, I'll tell the reapers, gather the weeds first, bind them into bundles to be burned, gather the wheat into my barn. I want to take this out of context, but there's a principle here, because the context of this is Jesus is talking about the sons of the kingdom and sons of darkness is what he's talking about. He's talking about that the sons of darkness are, everybody that's in church ain't of church. You know what I mean? Everybody that says that it's just the truth. Jesus talks about it here. That's what this is talking about, but there's also a principle here I want you to see. The principle here is, I think it's found in verse 25 for me. What illustrates it is, while his men were sleeping. One translation says, while men slept. While they were asleep at the wheel, an enemy came and sowed tares or sowed weeds among the good seed while men slept. Anybody besides me ever been asleep at the wheel? Anybody besides me ever been on autopilot in your life? See, what you can do is you can go and you can spend all this time preparing your field. You can spend all this time getting everything ready. You can spend all this resources and this money on good seed. You can spend all the effort to till it, to fertilize it, to water it. But then if I get lackadaisical and I kind of just take things for granted and fall back and get asleep at the wheel, that's when your enemy comes. And he will come. You know, the kicker here is the wheat still comes up, but so do the tares, so do the weeds. And if I allow myself to be in a position where I forget what I need to be all in with, where I forget what's important, where I forget that the end goal is in mind, that the wheat harvest is in mind, that God's plan for me, the end of that is in mind, that God's plan for other people, when I forget that, when I forget the long term for the short term, and sleep and fall asleep at the wheel, the enemy comes. And you may still get a harvest, but the truth of the matter is, it's at least twice as much work. It's at least. Because you got to deal with all the issues that have been created, because I have to deal with all the issues that have been created because I fell asleep at the wheel. And so the wheat's still there. There's all this other stuff to deal with that I wouldn't have had to deal with had I kept eternity in mind, had I kept the end goal in mind. It's a whole lot more difficult after I've been asleep at the wheel to come back and to get things right than it is to just stay vigilant to start with, to keep my mind focused to start with. I got good news for you. If you find in your life that you've been asleep at the wheel and there's weeds among your wheat, that there's issues that you're having to deal with, the good news is Jesus knows how to deal with issues. Jesus is smart. This man was wise. The master is talking about Jesus. He's wise. He knows how to deal with it. But the truth of the matter is, he wouldn't have to, and you wouldn't have to, and I wouldn't have to if I didn't fall asleep at the wheel. It's a whole lot easier to keep eternity in mind. The good news is, he can still fix it. He's a God that's good like that. So the principle here is, keep eternity in mind. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. Place enough value. These guys didn't place enough value on the expense that went into it, on the buying the seed, they didn't place enough value. And when they didn't place enough value in that, their heart followed that, and they kind of got disconnected from it. They were able to go and crash and sleep and forget about it because they were disconnected from what was important. They didn't place enough value in it. Remember, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. There was probably some Pokemon out here on the other side that they were following and got tired out there and went and crashed on the other. And come on, I'm not really against that, but it's just kind of funny to me. Really, Pokemon? Anyhow. It's just a distraction. That's the point. That's the point. How much energy in this? Okay, I will meddle. You want me to meddle? I'll meddle. How much energy, and look around here, how much energy and time and resources and gigabytes has been spent in this room on stupid Pokemon? Don't even answer that question. Anyway, that was a shot across the bow at somebody y'all don't even know. Really, Pokemon? Anyway, come on. Let's reel it back in. Let's get this spiritual again. Let's reel it back in. Here's the thing. We can find ourselves very easily in the same place as these guys were in this field. And here's the kicker for me. These guys were the ones that were asleep at the wheel, and I find myself in my life, I'm the one who's asleep at the wheel, and I've let the enemy come in and sow the seed. But I don't know if you've ever caught yourself doing that. You ever notice that these guys went and said, "Hey, master, how come you bought crummy seed?" Once again, went and pointed the finger at Jesus for what they'd allowed in. Man, can't tell you how many times, Jesus, how come you let this? Oh, wait, that really wasn't you, was it? That was me. Oh, yeah, that one was on me. Sorry about that. Really? See, here's the thing. A lot of times we think that we don't have any responsibility in the outcome of things. We think that things are just, they are the way they are. The outcome's going to be what the outcome's going to be. And it doesn't matter my responsibility at all because the outcome's just going to be what it's going to be. When the truth of the matter is there's a lot of stuff that we bring on ourselves because we don't pay attention. We fall asleep at the wheel. We have to deal with a lot of problems sometimes that we blame on God that are really not God, that are on us. He's just good enough to bring us through them. He's just smart enough to help us figure out the way out. I cause myself problems all the time. And if you say you don't, then there's big problems. But we do. We got issues. We got issues. The good news is Jesus knows how to deal with all that stuff. The better news is we can get all in with the right stuff and we don't have to deal with it. 5 practical points. Ready? How do we keep, bless you, how do we keep from getting to a place where we don't value things correctly? How do we get to the place where we can put ourselves all in with the right things? How do we get to the place where we don't allow ourselves to create more issues for ourselves? How do we do that? Number 1, we need to prioritize our energy and our efforts. This is about prioritization. It seems like this is a season of prioritization for my family, for the church, for us, for people. When you come through a season where you're getting your family back in the groove, back on track, then it's a season where you say, okay, this was good, but I got to prioritize. This is good. You do this in business, Okay, I've been going to these 5 different offices trying to talk to them in business, and 3 of them aren't cutting it, so maybe I need to spend my time on the 2 that are. It's a prioritization thing. It's a cost-benefit analysis is what it is if you're a business person. Let me throw that out there for you. See, y'all didn't think I knew big business terms enough. It's a cost-benefit analysis. We got to prioritize our energy and our efforts. You only have so much energy. You only have so much time. 24 hours in a day, no more. It is what it is. The second thing is we need to get ourselves all in where it counts. We need to be people who are willing to choose the good part. Now, that may mean you need to let some good things go. It doesn't mean that we're evil. It just means, okay, that's not the best for me right now. We need to be willing to get ourselves all in where it counts, not all in where it's insignificant. The third thing, I need to decide that I'm tired of double the work from my harvest. I'm tired of having to work twice as hard as I'd have to for what God has for me. I'm tired. You ever get tired? I'm tired. I'm tired of having to work twice as hard for what God has for me than what He intended to start with. I'm tired of it. I don't want to have to gather up the weeds because I went to sleep. I don't want to have to gather all that up and then come back and do it again when I could just go and gather the wheat. I get tired of doing double the work. Tired of bringing it on myself. You know what I mean? Tired of bringing it on myself. The fourth thing is we need to decide what God is doing in my life is worth more than half effort. We need to decide that what God is doing in my life is worth more than half effort and second place. If we're honest with ourselves, we say we want purpose, we say we want destiny. Do we put it to the place of priority to where we're all in with it? Do we put it to the place where it has the effort that we need to put in, or do we half-heartedly do it? Do we half-heartedly do it? We need to decide that it needs to be first place. And the fifth thing is we need to wake up. If we're asleep at the wheel, we need to wake up and we need to get all in. We need to adjust our priorities and wake up. Shake ourselves awake. Help each other keep each other awake. And we need to get all in. We need to get all in with Jesus.